let anybody on this app or outside of this app, quite frankly, make you think that you need to be skinny or lose weight.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Katie, and for those of you who don't know me, I used to weigh 360 pounds, and I've lost 180 pounds and kept it off for years now. And on this channel, we will discuss weight loss, weight maintenance, nonsense I see online about body positivity and fat acceptance, my experiences with all of that, and well, anything else I feel like talking about. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, and let's get into today's video. So today I have a TikTok from another new friend to the channel, and her name is Samyra, and she has some advice on not letting your size hold you back. So I figured we can go ahead and watch that together, and I'll give you my reaction along the way.
Let me make something very clear. Don't ever let anybody on this app or outside of this app, quite frankly, make you think that you need to be skinny or lose weight before you can talk how you want to talk, act how you want to act, be who you want to be, do what you want to do.
Okay, so on its face, I don't really have an issue with that. You can talk how you want to talk, act how you want to act, be who you want to be, but do what you want to do. That's where that kind of ignores the physical limitations that may come along with being a certain size. I know, for example, at 360 pounds, I've mentioned numerous times on this channel, I could no longer tie my own shoes. I was having trouble getting behind the steering wheel of my own car. And there were other limitations as well. I live fairly close to Cedar Point, and I love roller coasters. And for a number of years, I didn't even bother going to Cedar Point because it wasn't worth the price of admission because I knew I wasn't going to fit on any of the roller coasters. So I knew if I wanted to ride those roller coasters again, I was going to need to lose weight. And even after I had lost a fair amount of weight, I had lost about 120 pounds at that point. And this was in 2013. I took my husband up to Cedar Point for the first time since we'd gotten together. And since he's not from the area, this was his first time going to Cedar Point. And I had hyped up my favorite coaster, Millennium Force, the entire time. So when we went to go ride Millennium Force, I was not able to ride it. I was too large and I got kicked off the ride. And quite frankly, I am very grateful that the ride operators at Cedar Point did do their jobs and thought of my safety first, as we have already seen that there were others that were not so fortunate. So I guess it really does depend on what you want to do. For me, riding roller coasters, that was something I really wanted to do. Another thing I love to do that does have limitations on it is ziplining. And I have been able to go ziplining numerous times since I've lost the weight. There's other activities like horseback riding. Well, I don't go horseback riding, but I did get to ride a camel, and I wouldn't have been able to do that at 360 pounds. And then another thing that I love doing now, and I have one coming up this weekend, is I love doing races. I have a 7K coming up this weekend. Well, I'm sure by the time I get this edited and posted, it will have already happened. So stick around to the end for a bonus story time, and I'll tell you all about my very first 7K. But I know at 360 pounds, I had given myself obesity-induced asthma and did not have the cardiovascular ability to walk 5K, 7K, any of these races that I love doing now. I appreciate the sentiment, I really do. And don't let anyone ever stop you from being who you are, that's for sure. But there are going to be physical limitations that do come along once you do reach a certain size.
Don't ever let anybody make you think that is how we need to operate. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge how harmful fat phobia is.
Okay, so I am curious what she means by fat phobia, because I know from within this movement, from within body positivity and fat acceptance, there's a whole list of things that they may consider to be fat phobic. Actually, I've already compiled a list of some of those, so why don't I go ahead and just roll that beautiful bean footage. Weighing yourself?
This comment was made in response to my video explaining how to decline being weighed at the doctor's office, and the answer is because of fat phobia.
Before and after pictures?
Before and after weight loss videos are fat phobic.
Losing weight?
If you are intentionally losing weight, it is fat phobic.
Going to a gym? Working out?
So yes, if you work out strictly for appearance-based reasons, you are fat phobic.
Counting calories?
If you ever even look at nutrition labels, you have an eating disorder. Why would you want to know what you're putting in your body? Just go to the store and buy whatever looks good.
Following a meal plan?
I'm fat phobic, apparently. Simply because in the last video I said, hey, you don't have to finish everything on your plate if you're full.
I mean, I have heard all of those things be labeled as fat phobic. So I am curious what she does mean by that. Now, I do know in every definition I've come across, they do talk about bullying and harassment, specifically online bullying. And I gotta say, I definitely agree with them on that bullying and harassment is never acceptable or okay. But I am curious if that is what she is meaning or if she is meaning more to it than that. But let's see, maybe she will explain. Let's see what else she has to say.
The limitations that it puts on our self-worth.
Okay, so maybe this is just me, but I never felt like there were limitations put on my self-worth by others when I was at my heaviest. The limitations that I felt in my self-worth at that time came from a loss of abilities. Not being able to tie my own shoes, not being able to walk without being out of breath. And while my weight was not the direct cause of my terrible ankle injury, my weight definitely exacerbated that and made it much more difficult for me to walk when I was already having trouble walking properly. So those limitations I felt on my self-worth came from within, came from what I was doing to myself, the coping skills and the habits that I had picked up that allowed me to get to 360 pounds. It wasn't limitations that I felt from others. As a matter of fact, when I was at my heaviest or around it, quite frankly, that was when my social life was going through the most active time in my entire life. I mean, I was in my mid-20s, so I didn't have kids yet. I was working a job with fairly regular hours, so I wasn't working nights and weekends like I did for most of my career. And I was going out nearly every single night and hanging out with large, diverse groups of friends. About 4 or 5 nights a week, I'd go out and play poker. And at least once or twice a week, I was going out to concerts and seeing local bands. And I definitely had my poker friends, and I definitely had my concert friends, and became friends with other fans and members of the band. And I still have friends from both groups still to this day. So that was actually the most active time in my social life, and I never once felt that way from other people. And I'm definitely not going to say that everyone had my experience, that's for sure. But I have to admit that the limitations that I felt on my self-worth all coming from within, not from others. And once I started making small changes and actually meeting some of those goals that I'd set for myself, I no longer felt any of those limitations on my self-worth, at least not when it comes to weight or body size. I definitely don't have everything figured out, but at least when it comes to that, I haven't felt that way in so long. And again, it never came from other people. It always came from myself. So I definitely can appreciate that there is an audience for this type of message, and I am definitely not that audience. But I am curious to see what else she has to say.
On ambition, on drive, constantly being told wherever you go, what you read, what you listen to.
Okay, constantly being told everywhere you go, everything you read, everything you listen to. I kind of find that hard to believe. I really, truly do. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but everywhere, that feels very hyperbolic. That feels like a big old exaggeration to me, especially now when we are able to tailor our content in ways we never were able to before. You can stream whatever you'd like on demand. You can listen to just about anything you want. You can find podcasts, you can find music, you can read so many things. We have encyclopedias available to us in the palm of our hands now. So I find it hard to believe that it is every single thing that we consume. Or I guess maybe I've just been very lucky to find a large amount of content that didn't revolve around any of that. So
that you will not be seen past your body unless it is small.
Okay, so she thinks that if you're small, you'll be seen past your body because she just identified a small body. So she already is not seeing past the body, just a small body. It's objectification. That's what it is. When you don't see the actual person and you just reduce them down to an object. It's objectification. And it can happen to literally everyone. It has nothing to do with body size. It's when people only look at you for the object they see in front of you. That's it. And as a matter of fact, that objectification has gotten so much worse since I lost weight. I used to feel a lot more invisible. Truly. I did. I felt like I could walk through public spaces and go fairly unnoticed. It's a lot more difficult now. It truly is. But the level of objectification was at its worst when I was at my thinnest. So no, people don't see past your small body. The type of person that will objectify you will continue to objectify you in any size. That's just the type of person that they are. And it's not fun to deal with. It truly isn't. But this notion that you'll be seen as more when you're smaller, that's exactly what she's saying, that you'll be seen past your body if you have a small body, when, my goodness, that was not the case for me. I received so much more objectification, and more is definitely not always better, not even close. But let's see what else she has to say.
I am well aware that there are many people who will cease interest in me, learning about me, just after seeing my body. They will not do deep dives. They will not know about where I come from, what I do, where I've been, who I am, the joy that I have. And you would think.
Okay, and again, she's just further describing objectification. And from my experience, that got worse as I lost weight. Definitely got worse as I lost weight. And believe me, I understand that there are people out there that will definitely look at people that are fat or overweight and make judgments about them. I understand that. They're also the same type of people that will make judgments about you if you have red hair or blonde hair or literally anything. Oh, you're wearing those clothes? Then that must mean this. They're that type of person that will literally objectify you for any reason. And often I find that we want to put this notion that there's good objectification and bad objectification. That if you're receiving attention, like you're getting asked out or hit on, that must be good attention and good objectification. And if you have someone who wants to pass judgment because someone's fat, then that would be bad objectification. Where I find pretty much all objectification is not good. It's just not. And now that I've had to deal with so much more of it, it's given me a much different perspective than I ever had when I was heavier. And she just stated that they'll see past that if you're in a smaller body, right? And this is not just Samyra who has stated this. This is something I have heard repeated throughout fat acceptance, body positivity, all the way back to when I was actively consuming body positivity content. That people will be kinder to you, people will treat you better, people will be nicer to you when you lose weight. And while Samyra is not exactly saying those words, she is definitely stating that they will see past this if you're in a small body. And that definitely was not the case for me. When I was at my thinnest, when I was down to 145 pounds, that was when I dealt with the most objectification. And I know I've mentioned numerous times on here that I had to quit my last job due to the misogyny and harassment that I faced there. And I think it's time to delve a little deeper into that story. So for context, I worked overnights at a gas station. I worked from 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. pretty much every shift that I worked. And from midnight until 6 a.m., I was alone in the store. The doors were locked and I was not allowed out and no one was allowed in. But customers were able to come up to my window and place their orders and I had to help them at the window. And in the area that I worked at, there are a lot of bars. There were a lot of regulars at those bars. There were a lot of parties. It's just kind of an area that people come together and party on the weekends and in the summertime for sure. And so between that job and my previous experience at McDonald's, I definitely got used to dealing with the bar crowd. So once I first started working there, I had a number of guys who did try to hit on me and ask me out. And once I would tell them I was married, the vast majority of them would back off. Now, there was a group of 6 of them that decided to try to befriend me. And because I had heard so many times that people will be nicer to me, people will be kinder to me, people will treat me better, people will see past my body once I'm smaller, I naively believed it. As it turns out, those men had absolutely no desire to know who I am, to know my story, to know where I come from. As I later found out, they actually all had a bet between the 6 of them over who could sleep with me first. And after I had become aware of this bet, that's when the harassment and the stalking and so much more started. I was being followed to and from my job. I would get random phone calls from private numbers at like 2 or 3 in the morning saying that they were watching me, which I got to admit was definitely terrifying. And if I wasn't working that night, there were a suspiciously large amount of cars that would be circling the block, sitting at the corner, near the stop sign, not at the stop sign, but just near the stop sign, so that way they could watch my house. I was very aware that I was being watched and followed everywhere I went. And if that weren't enough, I had online accounts hacked that had access to all of my photos, and people set up fake social media accounts under my name with my pictures. And I mean, I shudder to think of who may or may not have seen what pictures. I still, to this day, don't know. And yes, I did call the cops numerous times, and no, nothing came of it. So after months of dealing with this and being afraid to leave my own house, I finally turned in my notice. And I got up for work the night after I turned in my notice, and I just had the worst feeling in the pit of my stomach that somehow, if word had gotten out that I had turned in my notice and it got back to those individuals, that they might try something bold, knowing that their window of opportunity was closing. So I did something I never do, and I no-called, no-showed and didn't finish out my notice. But I had to, for my own safety, for my own sanity at that point. And it was less than 2 weeks later when the ringleader of this entire mess, who happened to be a local bar owner, he got into the purse of one of his patrons, got her keys, waited at her home for her. And I mean, I'm not even going to finish the story, okay? But let me just say, he's in prison where he belongs for a very long time. And given the situation and the timing of everything that happened, I don't even want to think of what would have happened had any of those 6 gotten their opportunity. So no, more is not better. Not everyone will be kinder to you, nicer to you, treat you better, will see past your body once you're in a small body. That's just not how it works. The very same people that will objectify you at any body size. And let me make this very clear. The blame will always lie with those individuals. Always. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how that type of social conditioning left me vulnerable, led me to believe that people really would be kinder and nicer and better to you, when in reality, people are still always going to be people. And there are always going to be good people and bad people out there. People that will objectify you for your body size, regardless of what that is. People that will treat you differently based off of how you look or how you dress. Those types of people will always exist. So I just wanted to share my perspective on this and my experience with that, because this is something that I have seen repeated so often that I naively believed it. I took it at face value and really did truly believe that people would be kinder to me. People would be nicer to me. People would be better to me. And people are still going to be people. So I really wish we could just recognize that all of this is objectification. And it's not good. It's not good to dismiss people and make judgments on them because they're fat. Nor is it good to objectify and not take no for an answer just because someone's in a small body. They are both forms of objectification, and they are both pretty terrible to be on the receiving end of.
And you would think that the very people that have experienced the negative side effects of fat phobia would not be the same people to perpetuate it once they were in a smaller body.
Okay, so again, I am genuinely curious what she is meaning by fat phobia. Because from within this very movement, I have heard that losing weight is fat phobic. And so the fact that I talk about losing weight, that would be perpetuating it, right? So I genuinely am curious what she is meaning by fat phobia, because it has had such a very broad and vast definition that I've heard many different creators ascribe different meanings to. So again, I'm genuinely curious by that. But also, it almost feels like we're kind of circling back around to the content creators that switch up their style of content. So let's see if she explains any of this.
You cannot be against something and for it at the same time. No matter how many videos someone has made saying they support fat people, that's simply not true. When every other video continues to talk about how they are only more valuable now that they are skinny.
Okay, so it is pretty much exactly what I thought. Content creators who have lost weight and talk about losing weight, even if you are supportive of fat people. And here's the thing, support means very different things to very different people. That it just does. because that assumes that all fat people have the same goals in mind, that all fat people want to continue to stay fat, where there are plenty of fat people who do wish to lose weight and would like to see from others who have done it. So it just all depends on what the goal is that that person has that's going to determine what that support is. And this is not an all or nothing or you're either with us or against us type of thing. This is very much individualized and nuanced. And I gotta say, I never hated the 360-pound version of myself. Even with the limitations that I did have physically, I never hated myself. As a matter of fact, I am immensely proud of my 360-pound self for investing in myself and understanding that I was worth it to make these changes in my life, to understand the trauma that I'd been through in my life and why I'd turned to food as a coping skill and what I could try to do to better my life in its place. I am immensely proud of this woman. So I will never hate the 360-pound version of myself. Now, as far as whether or not my life has more or less value, every single human life is valuable. But now I treat myself more valuably. And now that I treat myself better and with more value, I'm getting more out of life than I did at my heaviest.
It's an issue. And I just want to make sure that anyone who is fat, who has spent time in a larger body, that they know that they can and will do more than what they think they can. You are capable. It is possible. Do not let people think that their limitations need to limit you.
And again, I appreciate the sentiment of that. I truly do. And again, I would just like to commend this woman right here, myself at 360 pounds, for making the decision to change my life. Because again, I would not be standing here and getting as much value out of life as I am had I not lost the weight. And it's not the limitations that others put on me. It's not the way society treated me. It wasn't fat phobia. It was the physical limitations that being that size put on my own body. Because to get to 360 pounds, no one was treating me worse than I was treating myself. And having awareness and holding myself accountable allowed me to see myself out of that. So yes, on one hand, I do agree with Samyra here that you should not put limitations on what you believe you can achieve. However, I am realistic enough to understand that at 360 pounds, there were very real limitations that were put on my body. So let me know down below, what do you think? Do you agree with Samyra that we should not allow our size to hold us back? Or do you believe that there are physical limitations that can come along once you reach a certain size? Please let me know down below. I love reading all of your comments and I am genuinely curious. And after some of the heavy subjects discussed in this video, let's go ahead and have a palate cleanse with that bonus story time. Everyone, I did it. I did it. I did my first 7K. I am so unbelievably excited. You have no idea how incredibly excited and proud I am that I completed this. I never thought that I would be doing any of these types of races, let alone being excited about them, let alone actually seeking out longer races because I want to try to push myself further. So I just got to say, I am so incredibly glad that I started doing these races because this is something I absolutely love. And every time that I go, my heart is just so full. And yes, the medal is a literal cowbell. It literally is a cowbell. I am like obsessed with this. This is one of my favorite medals I've ever gotten. It was wonderful. The race was fantastic. The course was amazing. Got to walk around a beautiful lake that's right in the middle of my city. And they had a mascot, which if you know me in real life, I adore mascots. I adore mascots. Every single mascot is a national treasure. And I love them. And anytime there's an event where there is a mascot, I will go chase them down and get some pictures. And the best part, I got to run into an old friend there. So this is my friend Jill, and she and I go way back all the way to middle school, high school, and beyond. And so, yeah, we go way back. So it was so wonderful to see her again and catch up and just get to experience this all together. So one thing I like to always point out every time I talk about a race, whether it's 5K, 7K, or like, for example, the 10K I'll be doing later this summer, I walk them. I don't run any of these races. And because I'm not a runner, for a long time, I did feel a bit intimidated trying to join these races. But I just want to say, if anyone out there is on the fence, do it. Oh my gosh, do it. It is so fun. And I didn't realize how much fun it would be until I completed my first one. Came home from my first one last year and signed up for all of the rest of the races that I could find in my area for the rest of the year. So I gotta say, if you're on the fence, if you're not sure, if you're feeling a little nervous, that was me. And now I'm kind of kicking myself that I put it off for as long as I did. Because this is so much fun. This is something I truly enjoy, and it's something that I know I will continue to be able to enjoy for the rest of my life. So I hope everyone is having a wonderful weekend, and thank you for sticking around for bonus story time. That is where we'll leave things today. I thank you so much for joining me. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye! I just had to break up a cat fight. Oh my goodness. I have 3 kitties. We have Pokey, Miss Tony, and Miss Penny. And Pokey was the instigator today.
Round 1, fight! Round 2, fight!
I feel claws. Hey, baby.
Finish her! Flawless victory.
Bye!